Hi, everybody. Welcome to another webinar by AuctionMethod. My name is Daniel West, and I am one of the co-founders of AuctionMethod. And I've been doing custom software development now with AuctionMethod for 13 years. It's a long time. So today, what we're going to be talking about is what custom software development actually looks like, at least from the auction method perspective. Um, and with that, I'm going to just jump right in. I will say that if you have questions, feel free to either hit me up after the webinar. You should be able to, I think there's a chat option as well, or you can raise your hand to participate in the webinar. You can ask questions and I'll try to get to them afterward. Um, so I have a little presentation, a little slideshow that I'm going to share with you guys as we walk through this. So here we go. So yeah, what we're specifically talking about is building these bespoke auction platforms. So with AuctionMethod and with many other software developers in the auction space, what we have is actually sort of two paths to follow. One is a standard software solution. We call that a SaaS platform. SaaS stands for software as a service. And so this is just a regular subscription model. You can turn it on very quickly. You go live within just a couple of days. Um, Most of it is self-service in terms of like the configuration options and the settings and all that. You can just get in there and make all the changes that you want yourself to the software. And this is it's a full-featured platform, both a front end, back end, everything that you need to run an auction business. One user told me it's like having an auction business in a box. And that's true. It's got everything all the way down through invoicing and payments, email, SMS notifications. And for, a lot of auction companies, that is all you need. It's super affordable. Provides all the tools you need to run online auctions. At least with AuctionMethod, you can run unlimited sales. There's no platform skim. You just pay a small monthly fee to use the software, and you get everything that you need to run the business. And if you want to build a multi-million dollar empire on top of that, you can do that with no restrictions whatsoever. But that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is when you need a custom solution, a bespoke solution that has been built around the way that you work, where you need someone to really understand your business, your particular needs, wants, desires, the direction of your company, where you aim to be in the future, that type of thing. Someone who's really got your back, not just in terms of software development, but hosting, maintenance, support, all of that. That is what we're talking about. And normally, what we find, I think I've talked about this before. Certainly, there's some guides on our website at auctionmethod.com to help you understand the sort of progression that most auctioneers find themselves in. They oftentimes will start in a common marketplace. You've seen, for example, like HighBid is probably the most popular one, common marketplace where you're sharing a mall, sort of, if you will, for lack of a better description, with a whole bunch of other auctioneers. That's where a lot of people start. But then, of course, they make their way into a white labeled SaaS service, like that I was describing to you earlier. And then as they continue to grow and gain sort of market share and market knowledge, they oftentimes will end up migrating into a custom bespoke solution. And it's that part. That's what we're talking about today. So, uh, part of my job every day is to help people figure out which solution is going to work for them. And I don't have a particular bias towards one frame of or one method of software development or the other. If you can benefit from and use the low cost, affordable, dependable SaaS service, then I'll direct you in that direction. But if you need bespoke solutions, these are usually the reasons why. So, a lot of times it has to do with the workflow. One of the things that surprises me or did surprise me when I entered into this business 13 years ago is that no matter how alike auction companies are, every one of them is utterly and completely unique in terms of how they actually do their business, how they work through everything from the intake process to the way that they conduct the auction, the way they handle customer service, invoicing, payments. Surprisingly unique in the way that every business handles that. So if you can't adapt your business model to a particular software solution, then it needs to work the other way, where the software is tailored to your specific needs. And so, if you've already experimented with workarounds and, juggling multiple applications to try to make things work, you're doing a lot of improvising, and the software just doesn't fit you quite right anymore, then a bespoke solution is something that you would likely appeal to you. The other reason people come to a custom solution or a bespoke solution is because they're trying to create a branded destination. And what I mean by that is that they don't just want a white label service where they can slap their logo and their domain name and their color scheme on there and call it good. Companies that are creating a branded destination want exquisite control over the presentation, every last little detail about how the website looks from the user's perspective, what it looks like on a mobile device, what it looks like on a desktop device, and everything from real fine-grained color and style control to layout, like how it actually, the flow of the website from the home page all the way through the auction catalog and the user's account and all of those sort of public-facing pages. Um, if you have a real strong vision and ideas of what you're trying to implement there, most likely you're going to need a bespoke custom solution. The other reason companies oftentimes go this direction is because they're giant. If you need sort of if you have enterprise level needs, requirements related to data ownership or integrations, and when I say integrations, uh, I'm not just talking about like third-party integrations. In many cases, what we find is companies have legacy software, perhaps that they built themselves or that was built for them, and they can't be done with it just yet. It needs to continue to live, but it needs to be integrated with their new modern online auction platform. Anyway, the point is that sometimes it's about integration, sometimes it's about legal compliance, everything from security compliance, perhaps you need, compliance with like FedRAMP. Or accessibility standards in other cases. Either way, if compliance is something that is at top of mind for you, you'll oftentimes find that the sort of standard software solutions are not going to meet your needs. The other reason is that you might need the actual infrastructure, like where the software is hosted, to be located in a very specific region due to legal or other considerations. So, enterprise level requirements require a bespoke solution. And the other reason actually that people will come to us for a custom solution is because of the asset class that they're working in. So from our point of view, the software is by default asset agnostic. You can sell anything you want on there. If you want to sell furniture, you want to sell cars, you want to sell real estate, whatever you want to sell, it's general and generic enough and flexible enough, the software is to handle any asset class you want. But different asset classes have unique needs from the intake process, the presentation in terms of oftentimes the advanced searching and filtering that's needed, and a lot of times the workflow. If you're selling vehicles, for example, the paperwork and the data you need to collect on that is quite different than when you're selling real estate, so on and so forth. The idea is that if you are focused on a particular asset class, then you'll be best served in the long run with a bespoke solution that has been designed to work for that very specific asset class. So what's the process look like if you want to engage on a custom solution? It always starts with what we call the discovery process. And what I usually tell people is that there's essentially a discovery light and a discovery plus, if you will, depending on your needs. And the discovery process typically starts in the sales process. So I'm the VP of sales here at AuctionMethod. And this is where we spend a lot of time talking about clients' needs before they ever decide to actually sign up for service with us. And so the discovery process is an iterative one. It usually looks like, essentially coming initially with some questions. Does your platform do this? Or I need this. Does it, how do you handle these situations? That's where it kind of starts. And then we begin to flesh out the details. What are the bare minimum requirements, for the platform, and then what's the wish list look like? So almost always I'm telling people, go ahead and draft a document right away that has requirements and wish list, because no matter who you're talking to, that's where you should be starting, is with your basic needs, what you're aiming for. And so what I'm going to suggest here in terms of the discovery process is when we need to go deeper. So if you're a large enterprise or you're an established business with unique workflows, then we need to go deeper, and we cannot expect you or your team to know in advance everything that you need. I mean, a features checklist is helpful, and we even provide one on our site that might be helpful to you. But beyond a features checklist, what really needs to happen is a strong understanding relationship between you and your software developer. In our case, we get close and sort of intimate with you through this discovery process. So what it looks like is, depending on who you are, we'll either come on site, so we'll have a team come on site and usually spend 3 to 4 days immersed in your business. And these are usually uh, handled in consecutive meetings with different teams within your organization, where we're really trying to flesh out what are the pain points. What's not working for you? What is working for you? What do you want to have be different? Where are you gonna, if you could have your ideal solution, what would that actually look like? So it's a lot of discussion during that initial immersive engagement. If your team is remote or distributed, in those cases, we'll do virtual meetings, no problem. And so either way, the idea is that we actually are meeting Auction Methods team with your team, the people on the ground doing the work to understand what's working, what's not, and where we need to go from here. The other thing is that especially, on-site visits, but regardless of where we're starting from, our primary goal is to understand you first. So we're not coming in trying to sell you on a particular solution. We're not trying to say that there's a right way, to move you until we understand exactly what it is that you're in need of, right? So we can't recommend a solution until we understand the problem. And so that starts with an observation. And that means like actually watching the folks doing their work, actually discussing matters with them. And oftentimes, if we, can't be on site, then the way that that looks is through shared demonstrations where your staff is walking us through the existing sort of software ecosystem to show us what's working and what's not. So during this discovery process, we're documenting everything, right? The meetings we got all the notes from the meetings, and then of course we have all of the shared documents back and forth. And the idea is that we're trying to soak in as much information as possible, and we're trying to structure it so that we can see which elements of your needs, wants, desires, where do they fit into the software structure. And it's only out of this sort of immersive discovery process that we then can recommend a solution and start building. What I will say again, though, is there's sort of discovery light and then there's sort of heavier engagement. If you're put off by this idea that oh, we're going to have to come on site, we're going to have to explore your business operations, and we're going to have to spend all this time and money, um, not always. That's not always the case, right? Sometimes, especially if what you're looking for is primarily creating a branded experience and it's really about layout and design, there's not that much discussion really that needs to happen, right? You share your mock-ups, your vision with us, and we implement it. It's that simple. So that discovery process would be like a discovery light. There's not a lot to be said there. If you just need a particular integration, no big deal. The discovery process there is just fleshing out those details. We can usually hash that out over some emails and a couple of meetings. But if what we're doing is really building a bespoke platform for your established business, then the discovery process will be a lot more immersive. So uh, we'll recommend though. We'll tell you. You tell us what you're looking for during the sales process, and we'll tell you whether or not we need to if we think that it's important to go with sort of an intense discovery process, or if we can just do it through a series of emails and meetings. So one of the key things about the way we work, we operate within a modified agile framework. It's not important that you know the details. If you're a developer, you know what agile means. We do use Jira for all of our project management needs. And so what that means is that your project, your platform will have its own dedicated workspace where everything related to that project, all the information about you, your business, all your support requests, your the revisions that have been made, any bugs and fixes, you name it, the entire history of your platform is contained within this dedicated workspace. And so you're not having to compete with everybody else in that sense, right? You have your own space within Auction Method's development environment. Um, so yes, you get this institutional memory, which can be helpful. So if you've been with us for 5 to 10 years, there's a long, rich track record of everything that we've ever talked about and everything that we've agreed to do, not agreed to do, so on and so forth. Um, I have this example. Oops, go back here. An example, it says 100 plus platform iterations for a long-term farmland auction client. So one of our clients has been with us, I think about 7 years now. And over the course of that time period, their platform has over 100 iterations. What that means is there's a lot of fine tuning and tweaking of the platform along the way. So um, it's easy to think that we're just going to build a custom platform, a bespoke platform, and then that's it. It's fixed, it's done. But that's not how it works at all, right? Like it's a living, breathing thing, and you as a company are responding to market pressures, new opportunities, all of that. And as you see your needs growing, and as you see ways that you can, increase your efficiency and leverage technology to be more competitive, then we're working with you hand in hand to keep that software system sort of at the bleeding edge, right? To meet your very specific needs. And in the case of this one particular farmland client, well over 100 iterations. And it could just be that some of them are smaller ones, like simple style changes, that kind of thing. But in many cases, what we're talking about is modifying massive workflows, and in some cases, the bidding algorithms themselves. Um, so something to keep in mind there is that bespoke solutions are not fixed; they are dynamic, and so that means that the work it can get solidified. You don't have to make changes, but over time, if you have the opportunity, the ability to gain advantages through technology, it behooves you to use them. So, how do these requests, these iterations, how do they actually work here on our end? So, um, when you have one of these bespoke solutions, then of course there's the your initial request, right? So you're going to tell us something like, I have this particular challenge that I'm trying to deal with. You don't even have to tell us exactly how you want to solve it. You just tell us what the challenge is. We'll propose a solution. We'll listen to propose a solution. That's the intake process. When we propose the solution, assuming that once we agree that that's the right way forward, we'll perform an estimate on how much time and effort it's going to take to complete the work. And because billing for custom development is done on an hourly basis, these estimates are firm estimates, meaning that if we say it's going to cost $1,000 to implement some custom dev work for you, then that's how much it's going to cost. Not a penny over that. There's no scope creep, no surprise bills, no nothing. If we tell you it's going to cost this much, that's how much it's going to cost. If it turns out that our estimates are wrong, and we have grossly misunderestimated how much work is involved, that's on us. That's not your problem. So then once you approve the estimate, then the development work actually begins. That's where we actually take the ideas and our team starts writing the code for that. Once the software has been developed, it goes through 2 rounds of quality assurance testing. So I'm going to pause for just a moment here to say that uh, earlier, you heard me mention that we work within a modified agile framework. Largely, what that means is that when we are doing this intake and estimation work, what we're doing is we're creating what are known as user stories with acceptance criteria. And without getting into like the details of all of that, it really what it means is that we're creating a narrative, a story, if you will, that works to describe the problem and the solution and what it's going to look like when it's done. And the importance of using this kind of framework cannot be understated. So, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make sure that all of the stakeholders, everyone involved in the request, understands the problem and how we're going to solve it and what it's going to look like when it's done before we ever engage in any kind of development. So, at the end of the day, you, me, the software developers, the quality assurance testing team, um, all of us are on the exact same page about what we're trying to do and what it's going to look like when we're done. Once the quality assurance testing is done on our end, we pass it to you for what's called pre-deployment review. So it's going to be not live on your website. It's going to be you actually have 2 versions of your site. One of them is your testing pre-deployment environment. You could call that your sandbox site, and then you have your live site. And so the pre-deployment site is where you and your team go in to review the work that we've done. You go and give us feedback if there's anything that is missing, something that's wrong, something that you need different. You would tell us about that. And so we'll complete this development, QA testing, and pre-deployment review until you're satisfied, until you're ready to make it live. And only at that point will we push that code into production, meaning it'll go live on your website. And of course, if there's some kind of a problem that we discover in production as a result of any modifications that we've made, then we can very quickly back out of those changes if need be. Thankfully, because of all of this testing and pre-deployment review, it's unlikely that we're going to be introducing any type of instability into your production environment. But in 13 years, it has happened, and so it's really important to be able to essentially hit the undo button and pull something out of production that has had unanticipated effects. Um, of course, not all of your software requests are the same. So you're not always necessarily asking for changes. Sometimes maybe there's a problem. So, if there is some kind of it doesn't have to necessarily be a bug, but something is not working as anticipated for whatever reason. Sometimes it's a bug, but sometimes it's also ancillary systems. The connected parts pieces aren't working as they should. The idea is that there is this prioritization of your requests that comes through. If the bidding functionality or the payment processing is in any way affected, those really important pieces of your business, that's number one priority. If your website's down, can't handle bids, and money's not flowing in, number one, top priority, gets the highest attention it can get from us. If the site's working, but maybe like a component of it isn't, for example, maybe let's just say the text messaging aspect of the notification system isn't working as well as you anticipated or you needed it to for whatever reason. That's important, and we will give it top priority, but it's below priority number one, right? If everything's working, things can keep moving. There's just some aspect of it that is significant, but it's not mission critical. That's priority two. The third priority is all the enhancements, the improvements, and new features. And I hope that you'll understand why it's like that, right? Like we want to make sure that what is in operation, what is making you money, stays functional and intact, working well. So, yeah, the actual work here, I thought I'd give an example of it. This is from scratch, an Australian vehicle auction platform targeting an international market. This was earlier this year, so it's fresh. In this case, I would say it was like small to medium build out in the sense that majority of there wasn't a big gap between what the client actually needed and what is automatically included with our standard software services. The main things were, to make sure that the infrastructure was all set up locally. There were some modifications because of the way that invoicing and payments work there. It needed the Stripe integration that already existed needed to be modified, and so did the invoicing system to meet these sort of unique, money payment workflow. Um, and then there were just modifications in terms of the messaging around the email and text message notifications. So the transactional messages through the system get automatically sent by email. Some people have them go out by SMS text message as well. Sometimes clients want us to modify what's being said, but in other cases, they want alerts or these messages to be sent out under different circumstances. So, for example, outbid notifications are common, right? That's already part of the platform. But it's possible that you want bidders to be notified, when there's a certain amount of time left or a certain amount of activity in items that are on their watch list. You can imagine all kinds of scenarios where maybe you want custom notifications going out, and that was the case here. In this case, the client that we onboarded had an existing solution that they'd been operating on for years, which meant that they had accumulated a lot of data. So in some cases, we are migrating. In this case, we were just migrating over the bidder database, the customers. So that means taking the entire customer records profiles from one software system and migrating it into the new solution. In other cases, we're actually migrating a lot more data than that. We're migrating historical data, including not just auction events and items and pictures and all of that. Sometimes we're actually migrating over consignor records and invoicing records, all of that. So data migration can be quite complex. Most of the time, data migration is really just about migrating the bidder database over. In this particular case, the client wanted to have a custom registration flow that would work really, in a particular way for their market, their international classic car auction market. And so there were some tweaks to the registration flow, and that's actually quite common where um, the functionality that you need is there, but it's not exactly the way you want it to be. You just want it to behave a little bit different than it did or than it does. And in this case, there were multiple interface changes, UX, UI refinements, where the client had a pretty strong vision of what they were aiming for. So they shared some mock-up images with us in advance. Um, in this case, the mock-ups only covered, I think, maybe 2 pages, whereas there's a number of different views. Like I was saying earlier, you don't just have the home page, right? You have the catalog view, then you have the item view, and then you have the user account views, and you have all these different sort of user interfaces that need to be considered. And so along the way, of course, there's the custom style elements that were implemented. But then multiple revisions to those sections of the site that had not already been mocked out, or where the mock-up images had not been created in advance. And so we're happy to say this was completed. We came in late last year and completed it early 2026, and now the platform is in production and everyone is happy. I mentioned earlier, that that one of our clients is Farmland Auction Client, who's been with us for many years now, has had over 100 iterations. I think the main point, though, what I'm trying to say is that um, the a bespoke custom solution is dynamic, and hopefully you and your team are responding to market pressures and market knowledge by modifying or requesting modifications to the software. So the way that this sort of learning, happens is, of course, is like bidders are going to tell you. They're going to say, "Oh, I didn't understand how it worked because, you didn't have this box for me," or whatever. They'll explain to you what the issues are that they're experiencing. Usually, though, it's that the staff members, people who you have working for you, are noticing some friction. And I think this is the point uh, where a lot of companies, because they're so used to workarounds and not having the ability to modify their software, sometimes what we discover is that it can take a long time for the administrative staff to find their voice and to start speaking up about things that aren't working for them. And of course, this can part of this is habitual patterns. They've been trained, there's nothing that can be done about it anyway, so just make it work. They've been trained in a certain way of juggling software applications and doing redundant data entry, copying and pasting information from one place to another. And a lot of times what happens is the staff believe that that's their job, and that if they didn't have to do all of that sort of redundant, inefficient work, that they'd be out of a job. And so it's really important for you as a platform owner to communicate to your staff, you know, that if there are improvements to be made, if there is redundant work happening, if there's places where they find themselves engaged in the same repetitive tasks again and again and again, that they should let you know, so that you can free them up for higher purpose work, higher value work. It is when we do these discovery visits where we go on site to see how companies are working, it is oftentimes heartbreaking to see the massive amount of energy that is being put into completely inefficient workflows, where in many cases what we see is people are juggling, spreadsheets and CRMs and custom made software and all kinds of paper. People are still using like paper, copying and pasting things and printing things out. Um, it's it's amazing what kinds of efficiency gains are possible when you really look at the friction created by your staff's work and then try to find solutions programmatically or within the software. The other thing is what's I find this the new auction format. I think that's the most fun. Is you're creative, you have a novel idea for a particular format that you want to try out, a new way of running auctions, if you will. That's my favorite. I love it. I could talk about new auction formats all day, every day, and I'd never get tired of it. Um, what we find is most auction companies, classic auction companies, are conservative by nature and are not actually progressively looking for new auction formats. They just want what works, and they want to do that again and again and again because that's what makes them money and that's what everybody expects. But if you're a startup, you're new on the scene, there's a good chance that you're going to want to do something a little bit different. than the way everybody's been doing it. And so that's kind of exciting. I love talking about new auction formats and not just formats, but new sort of ways of interacting with customers, ways of making it more fun, more engaging, and more secure, oftentimes. Um, Nowadays, there's, every piece of software out there, there's a piece of software that'll do anything that you want it to do, and all of them will integrate with all the other software pieces. So, if you have a favorite CRM or accounting software or marketing management tool or you name it, yes, we can integrate, no problem. And of course, there's all kinds of improvements, like our farmland auction client here discovered all kinds of improvements that you couldn't have even thought about until you launched. So that's what it looks like in the long term. So ultimately, the question is, should you use a standard software service like our SaaS solution, which is quite affordable, by the way, right? I just want to point out that, to be as transparent as possible, one of the big differences here is the price point. So our standard software solution starts at $100 a month. Like you could run a successful online auction business with your own custom branded auction platform for no more than 100 US dollars per month. No platform skim, no percentage of fees, nothing. You could have the whole thing. That's how affordable it is. And so for anybody who's cost conscious or price conscious, and if you're worried about where the money is going to come from for all this custom development, I would say start with a standard software service. Try to use that until you hit the ceiling. Don't go breaking the ceiling until you reach it naturally through your own growth. Um, but if you know you need a custom solution for the reasons that I've already mentioned, then at least with AuctionMethod, you know that you're looking at no less than $1,500 per month in terms of a service agreement. So it's a pretty big gap between these two, and we're looking to fill that gap probably. I'd say maybe third quarter in 2026. We'll have a plan that's sort of in between that will provide a lot of the needs that you want, perhaps without breaking the bank on the one side. And yeah, anyway, middle of the road plan is what we're aiming for. But anyway, the idea is that custom solutions do cost more, and the monthly sort of service agreement for hosting and support, if $1,500 a month is prohibitive to you, then you definitely don't want to go down this path because the software development itself costs money too, right? So making all of the changes to fit your needs and all the time in the discovery process, all of that takes time and costs money. We do everything we can to not hide any of that, to be as forward about it, and to make it so that you're in control, and never get hit with surprise bills from us. But it is important to know that this stuff takes time and costs money. The one thing that we do is we offer significant price differences in terms of the hourly development rate during the pre-launch period and the post-launch period. So you get normal sort of market rate post-launch, but before you launch, you get deeply discounted software development rates in order to encourage you to build out and do as much as you possibly can during the pre-launch phase. Let's see here. Is there anything that I missed? No, I don't think so. I think that's basically it. And so if this is a question that you've been asking yourself and you're not put off by this webinar and you think that a custom solution might be right for you, give me a shout. My email address is daniel@auctionmethod.com. You can always book an appointment through auctionmethod.com. Be happy to talk to you. It's okay if you come to me and you have a lot of questions, but you're not committed to actually using Auction Method. I'm still happy to talk to you and guide you, point you in the right direction. Whether that's a common marketplace, a standard software, a custom solution, or, and I don't recommend this for anybody unless you're a very, very, very large, deep-pocketed institution. You can always build from scratch, right? So not start with a an existing platform and then modifying it, but actually building everything from the ground up. We do that kind of work as well when necessary. But for most auction companies or auction adjacent businesses, what we find is that a bespoke custom solution is the right way to go. So I think that's the end of my presentation. Oh, yeah, there's a little sales pitch. I think I already said this. Book a meeting with me. I'll talk you through it. There's no pressure. There's no high pressure games going on here. I'm happy to just point you in the right direction, even if it's not with AuctionMethod. So that is the end of my presentation. Let's see here. Oh, we've got coming in 4 minutes before time's up. So perfect. Um, Let's see here. Do I have any questions? Raised hands. Doesn't look like it. So I think we're in pretty good shape. If you do have any questions, feel free to book a meeting with me or shoot me an email, and I'll do everything I can to help. Thank you so much for being with me today. Take care. See you next time.